All right, welcome to this explainer, everyone. Today we're taking an incredible journey right into the architecture of cosmic balance. We're going to be exploring a fascinating philosophical text by Xu Fang titled The Eight Dialectics of the Universe. So whether you're already familiar with Eastern philosophy or just kind of curious about how contrasting forces shape our reality, let's explore how these principles work and see if we can visualize these ancient ideas together. Yin and yang are the roots of each other. I mean, it's an incredibly profound thought, isn't it? Throughout this explainer, we're going to neutrally unpack these ancient philosophical frameworks to reveal what the text describes as the absolute fundamental laws of reality. We'll explore how these principles attempt to decode the mysteries of the cosmos strictly through the lens of this really intriguing source material. Okay, let's dive right into this. To make this complex material a bit more accessible, we've synthesized the dialectics into 6 logical themes: the unity of opposites, form, emptiness, and proportion, endings, beginnings, and cycles, details and infinite possibilities, stillness, motion, and mind, and finally, complying with natural laws. Starting right off with theme 1, the unity of opposites, the foundation of the universe. So to understand the cosmos, we first have to look at the macrocosm and this whole concept of dualities. The foundation here is what the source calls Taiji thinking. Basically, this is the principle that absolutely everything in the universe comes from the unity of opposites and the perfect symmetry of yin and yang. The core idea here is that opposing sides actually exist in the exact same unity. One side is literally the required condition for the other to even exist at all. And within a certain range, as one side flourishes, the other naturally declines. They are completely inextricably linked. And the text illustrates the practical application of this beautifully. It says, "Sages put themselves last but find themselves in front. They regard their bodies as accidental and are thereby preserved. By yielding, you actually preserve yourself whole." The text argues that the growth, sustaining, destroying, and changing of any two opposites are entirely dialectical. It's wild. But by stepping back, you actually end up moving forward. Moving right along to theme 2, form, emptiness, and proportion, the non-material elements. Now, if we look at the very fabric of the universe itself, the source outlines 3 fundamental elements: consciousness, structure, and energy. What's absolutely vital to understand here is that all 3 of these elements are completely non-material. The existence of any single one of them on its own is simply emptiness. You can't see its form or hear its trace. But once these 3 elements join together, they create the lustrous, dazzling, and just countless forms we see around us every day. It kind of changes how you look at the physical world, doesn't it? Knowing it stems from something completely invisible. And this brings us to a really fascinating paradox. Think of emptiness, that vast, unseen void, where pursuing form leaves you with nothing, as it simply cannot be seen or heard. Versus form, the dazzling, dynamic state where pursuing emptiness actually results in a myriad of changing images. The source explains that if a mind abides in form, it is actually in emptiness. And if a mind abides in emptiness, well, it is in form. Pursuing one inevitably results in the other. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how the source frames balance. In what it calls 36-dimensional space, positive forces of action and negative forces of reaction are symmetrically arranged. They are absolutely equal, but in total opposition. This maintains a perfectly symmetrical proportion where everything constantly reinforces and neutralizes each other, just perfectly keeping the universe in check. Which brings us to theme 3, endings, beginnings, and cycles, the inevitable turn. It's pretty wild to step back and view this contrast impartially. Life is positioned here not as an absolute, but as the very root of death, a state of yang, flourishing in the mortal world. Conversely, death is framed as the root of life, a state where yin flourishes, transitioning to a celestial world. The philosophy observes that every single moment has both birth and death occurring simultaneously. It even notes a pretty powerful paradox. Those who are not afraid of death are the ones who will truly live. So how does this cycle actually play out? First, things hit their absolute peak. Second, there's saturation, which causes a critical qualitative change. And third, there is a revival producing a new substance. The core argument here is that extremes always meet. Extreme happiness leads to sorrow. Extreme beauty leads to ugliness. When things completely exhaust themselves, they don't just end, they revive to create the totally new. All right, zooming in for theme 4, details and infinite possibilities, the micro to macro. Let's bring this abstract stuff down to earth for a second. The source provides a super clear progression. Atoms form molecules. A tiny sprout eventually grows into a massive tree with a full span's girth. It's like molehills making mountains. The advice here is really practical. You must deal with the big while it is yet small, and deal with the difficult while it's still easy. And this culminates in that famous proverb we all know: a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. The crucial takeaway? Any future success you desire depends entirely on the present moment. Ignoring small details or neglecting tiny things means you will never be able to accomplish grand achievements. For sure, it is the micro that builds the macro. Shifting our focus inward now to theme 5, stillness, motion, and mind, the inner landscape. Inside the human experience, stillness and motion completely rely on each other. Stillness is the source. It's where all things derive. Motion is the dynamic state. It's where things are actually accomplished. The text explains that strong motion comes directly from great stillness, and vice versa. Without stillness, there can be no true motion. Honestly, it's a great reminder for our constantly busy lives today. Without stopping, there are absolutely no true accomplishments. And this sets up a really powerful internal paradox around, well, our stuff. Having nothing is equated to a spiritual pure land, whereby lacking material burdens, you essentially possess everything. Conversely, having everything, pursuing wealth, power, and lust, leaves one feeling empty and trapped. Out of nothing comes something. The more you possess materially, the more illusory your reality becomes, bringing endless, unneeded troubles. The text pushes this idea even further regarding human consciousness. It states that when the mind abides nowhere, one's true nature prevails, allowing them to transcend forms and, in Eastern philosophical terms, attain Buddhahood or reach the Elysium world. But when the mind firmly abides somewhere, trouble inevitably comes. As the text so perfectly puts it, he who focuses too much on the specific cannot see the general. And finally, we arrive at our last destination. Theme 6, complying with natural laws, finding the balance. Let's see how this builds a big picture of restraint across all conditions: heaven and hell, light and dark, good fortune and bad fortune. The text teaches that out of waste grows grass, and good fortune constantly lurks right within bad fortune. Because of this interconnectivity, we must never fear the dark. Why? Because out of extreme darkness, light inevitably comes. They are quite literally two sides of the exact same coin. So what does this all mean? Ultimately, this is the text's definition of Tao. Tao is simply the theory of yin and yang. Maintaining a balance between these forces is rational. Knowing the dialectical principle is wise. And actually complying with the laws of nature is considered virtue. It is the realization that total perfection is fundamentally unattainable, and that chaos is always the direct result of imbalance. So, I'll leave you with this thought derived right from the text. Since absolute perfection is practically unattainable, and since rivers run endlessly into the sea so you can never drink them all, will you give up inordinate ambitions to simply comply with nature? How will you balance the dialectics in your own life today? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.